Good morning, grade 6 learners. I welcome you to another Science Terrific episode here in Valenzuela FB Live. How are you, grade 6? It's been a while since we last saw each other. I hope you had completed all your requirements for the third grading. Few weeks to go, and you will reach that stage that you are waiting for so long. Keep motivated and let us move up all together. So today we will learn another amazing concepts. Are you excited? That's great. So before we start, let me remind everyone to obey the following rules. First, don't forget to type your name followed by the name of your school in the comment box below. This will serve as your attendance and means in order to acknowledge your presence in today's session. Again, you type your name and the name of your school in the comment box below. Second, if you want to participate in today's discussion by answering my questions, feel free to use the comment box. If you also have questions in mind that you want to clarify, you may type your questions below and I'll try my best to answer it later. Our today's lesson is based on the most essential learning competencies in Science 6. It is to describe the different seasons in the Philippines. At the end of this session, you learners must be able to first describe the different seasons in the Philippines, and second, explain the importance of knowing the weather patterns and seasons in the Philippines. Now, I have a question for you. Do you like going out? Where do your family like to go? Is it going to the beach or climbing up a mountain? Do your family consider the time of the year in planning these activities? How about the farmers? When they plant, harvest, and dry their crops? People, especially the farmers, consider the seasons of the Philippines in planting and drying their crops. Now, how can we define season? A season is a period of the year that is usually characterized by a particular kind of weather. The Philippines has two kinds of seasons, the dry season and the wet season. Each has particular characteristics. Philippines has a humid subtropical climate and weather that is characterized by relatively high temperature, stifling humidity, and a lot of rainfall. The country is often visited by hazardous storms, and the Philippine climate, which is warm and humid year-round, is considered to be one of the healthiest tropical climates. If we look at the geographic location of the Philippines, Philippines lies between 5 and 20 degrees north of the equator. The Philippines is an archipelago. It is made up of different islands with different sizes, mountain ranges, valleys, hills, and other landforms that are found in different islands comprising the country. These geographical and physical conditions of the Philippines affect its climate. Climate is the average condition of a place over a long period of time. The Philippines generally has warm temperature throughout the year. However, the amount of rain that falls in the Philippines varies. Rainfall in different regions comes at different times of the year. In the Philippines, the amount of rainfall is used to describe the climate in different regions. Based on the distribution of rainfall, 4 climate types are recognized. So here is the climate map of the Philippines. Type 1, 2 pronounced seasons. We have the dry, from November to April and wet during the rest of the year. Maximum rain period is from June to September. For the type 2, no dry season with a very pronounced maximum rain period from December to February. There is no single dry month. Minimum monthly rainfall occurs during the period of March to May. Type 3, the seasons are not very pronounced. Relatively dry from either December to February or March to April. The rest of the year experience wet season. And the last type is the type 4. Rainfall is more or less evenly distributed throughout the year. Few days ago, the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration, or PAGASA, declared the start of the rainy season on Friday, June 4, citing the passage of Tropical Storm Dante. Now, in the Philippines, we have two pronounced seasons. We have the wet season. Wet season is characterized by a pronounced rainy season with thunderstorms. Wet season starts in June and peaks in July to September and then falls slowly towards the end of the year. During the wettest month, rain is in an almost daily occurrence. Precipitation is highest in the areas where the southwest monsoon strikes. During this season, we often heard the southwest monsoon, also known as habagat. So this monsoon brings lots of rain to the country. In Philippine weather, the entry of southwest monsoon signals the start of the wet season. Monsoon rains, thunderstorms, and typhoons are common weather phenomena experienced by the Philippines in this period of the year. Opposite to wet season is the dry season. Based on its name, dry season is characterized by hot and cloudless days. Between January and May, the climate is generally dry with occasional rain showers. During January to February, the air is cold and dry. The peak of dry season is in April with less rain showers. The dry season is influenced by seasonal wind and the northeast monsoon, also known as amihan. During this season, the country experiences a very little amount of rainfall, which is dominated by sunny or dry weather. Now, going back to my question earlier, do you consider the time and season before you plan an activity? If you do, what are the activities that we can do during the dry season? And what do we usually wear? How about during wet season? You may type your answers in our comment box. Okay, very good. I can see that you always plan and consider the time before doing an activity. That's awesome. Why do we only have two pronounced seasons? Dry season and wet season. Unlike those other countries with 4 seasons: winter, spring, summer, and fall. Do you have any idea? Main factor why we only have 2 seasons is because of the location of the Philippines. Since it is located a little north of the equator, it receives vertical rays of the sunlight. The sun's heat causes much water to evaporate and fall as rain later on. Part of the year experiences dry season and part of it is rainy or wet season. since the Earth revolves around the Sun. As the Earth rotates on its axis, it also revolves around the Sun. The unequal heating of the Earth's surface causes the different season experienced in different places in our country. Now, aside from the location of the Philippines, the rotation of the Earth affects the wind or blowing of air, and we call it the prevailing wind. A prevailing wind blows mostly from a single direction. The prevailing winds in the Philippines are the southwest monsoon or habagat and the northeast monsoon or amihan. The southwest monsoon or habagat runs from May to October, while the northeast monsoon or amihan occurs from November to early May. For most of the country, the dry season is during amihan. The wet season starts in June and reaches its peak in July and September. These prevailing winds dictates the weather pattern in the Philippines. And we know that typhoons are common from June to November and mainly pass over Luzon and Visayas. But how do these typhoons become typhoons? It starts with tropical cyclone. Tropical cyclone is the generic terms for an intense circulating weather system over the seas and oceans. It is accompanied by very strong winds, heavy rains, and large ocean waves. Its wind circulation rotates counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere and clockwise in the southern hemisphere. On average, 100 tropical cyclones form in the world annually, where 2/3 become typhoons and hurricanes. Some sort of trivia: typhoon, hurricane, and cyclone are just the same thing. The only difference between them is the location where the storm is formed and where it occurs. So if the storm is in the North Atlantic, Central North Pacific, and Eastern North Pacific, the term that we use is hurricane. The same type of disturbance in the Northwest Pacific is called typhoon. And cyclones that are formed over the Pacific or the South Pacific and Indian Ocean, we call them cyclones. Bagyo is the local term of any tropical cyclones in the Philippines. From the statistics gathered by Pag-asa, there are an average of 20 storms or typhoon per year that enters the Philippine area of responsibility. The average number of cyclones that made landfall or crossed the Philippines was 9 per year. There are 5 classifications of tropical cyclones. A tropical cyclone is classified according to its strength and grouped according to the maximum sustained winds near the center. So we have first the tropical depression, we have tropical storm, severe tropical storm, typhoon, and the super typhoon. Here in the Philippines, Pag-asa also releases tropical cyclone warning signal in the form of public storm warning signals. So we have 5 signals. The signal 1, which has wind of 30 to 60 kilometers per hour in the next 24 hours. Signal number 2, with wind of 61 to 120 kilometers per hour. Signal number 3, with a wind of 121 to 170 kilometers per hour. Signal number 4, with a maximum wind of 171 to 220 kilometers per hour. And lastly, the signal number 5, with a wind of more than 220 kilometers per hour in the next 12 hours. This storm signals is usually raised when a certain area in the Philippines is about to be hit by tropical cyclone. As a tropical gains strength and gets nearer to an area having a storm signal, the warning may be upgraded to higher one in that particular area. It may be downgraded to a lower signal or may be lifted. Storm signals also dictates the suspension of classes. I know that all of us already experienced a typhoon. One of the recent typhoons that caused too much damage is the Typhoon Rolly with international name Goni. It made landfall on the southeastern tip of the Luzon in the Philippines on Sunday, November 1, All Saints Day, year 2020. Typhoon Rolly, which peaked at 265 kilometers per hour, considered to be a super typhoon with 2 to 3 meters of storm surges, unleashed heavy rains, and damaging winds that killed at least 17 people and affects more than 2 million people. So, what are the dangers and effects of typhoon? First, we have flood. It results from days of heavy rains when rivers rise and go over their banks. Another one, we have flash floods. It is a sudden flooding that occurs when flood waters rise rapidly without warning. It often occurs after intense rainfall from slow-moving thunderstorms. In narrow areas and valley, flood water flows faster than on flatter ground and can be quite destructive. We also have storm surges. It is a tsunami-like phenomena wherein ocean sea waves rise towards the shore due to intense low pressure of tropical cyclones and others. Another, we also have strong or high winds. Winds of more than 185 kilometers per hour are considered catastrophic, capable of destroying even concrete homes or buildings if exposed. We also have the extreme rainfall or inland flooding. Intense rainfall can result in all kinds of inland flooding in low-lying areas through poor drainage, saturated soil, or the overflowing or river system. This hazard can be devastating, especially during a super typhoon when an affected location is within the typhoon's most intense rain clouds. The greatest number of deaths comes from this type of hazard. Now, why do we have to know all of this? First, it helps us understand that some events in nature have repeating patterns. With this, we can plan and set our schedules and activities in the right time and right place. By understanding our seasons, climates, and weather, we learn to be prepared, especially in our health. Some health problems may be triggered or worsened during the cold and dry season. Ailments such as influenza, cold, cough, and asthma. It is advisable to stay warm during cold days. Eating foods rich in vitamin C also helps strengthening your body's resistance and immune system. Climate influences the growth of crops, thus affecting the availability and kind of food that we eat. Can you think of other benefit of understanding seasons and weather patterns? You may share it using our comment box. The Philippines has only two pronounced seasons, wet and dry season. Wet season is characterized by a pronounced rainy season with thunderstorms. Wet season starts in June and peaks in July to September and then falls slowly towards the end of the year. While the dry season is characterized by hot and cloudless days between January and May, and the climate is generally dry with occasional rain showers. Because of the geological structure of the Philippines, its climate is also characterized based on the distribution of rainfall. That's why we have 4 climate types. The location of the Philippines is one of the factors affecting its season. Because of the direct sunlight that we are receiving, we can only have 2 seasons, unlike those on the upper part and lower part of the globe. Prevailing winds also dictates the weather pattern in the Philippines. Tropical cyclone is the generic term for an intense circulating weather system over the seas and oceans. Here in the Philippines, we call it bagyo. Our own Pag-asa releases tropical cyclone warning signals in the form of public storm warning signals. We have 5 public storm warning signals, and it also dictates the suspension of classes. And here are the effects of typhoons. We have floods, flash flood, storm surges, strong and high winds, extreme rainfall, and inlet flooding. And by understanding these concepts, we were able to make good plan in terms of activities that we would like to do in taking care of our health, and also in businesses and crop growth that is connected in the food that we eat. So now I prepared few questions to check your understanding in today's lesson. Just put a happy face if the statement is correct and sad face if not. Ready? Let's begin. First, in our country, the hot, dry season starts at the month of March. If your answer is happy face, you are correct. Second, location of the Philippines is one of the factors why we only have 2 pronounced seasons. Is it a happy face or sad face? So if your answer is happy face, you are correct. Next, northeast monsoon wind brings a lot of rainfall to the country. Happy face or sad face? So if your answer is sad face, very good. Next, number 4. Tropical cyclone is the generic term for intense circulating weather system over the seas and oceans. Happy face or sad face? So if your answer is happy face, you are correct. And last one. Some health problems like colds, cough, and asthma are triggered during dry season. If your answer is sad face, good job. Alright? I know you still have questions in mind that you want to ask. So feel free to type your questions in the comment box, and I will be waiting for your questions. So there is one question in the comment box. What is the most destructive typhoon ever recorded in the Philippines? The strongest and the most destructive typhoon ever recorded in the Philippines is the Super Typhoon Yolanda. Its impact caused 6,300 fatalities, 1,061 missing, and 95.5 billion worth of damage. Thank you for that very good question. Okay, allow me to read one question in the comment box. Is it possible to have snow in the Philippines? The answer is it's not possible. Based on what we learned, we only have two pronounced seasons. And winter is not included there. But in some circumstances, ice or the real ice could fall from the sky in the form of hailstones. Hailstones are ice pellets that land to the ground, same as snow. So comments are still coming, or questions are still coming in our comment box. So you may reserve those unanswered questions to your science teacher in your follow-up discussion tomorrow. So don't forget to attend your follow-up discussion. Let me share to you this short line from Mehmet Murad Hildan. You cannot forever escape a storm. You must learn to stand up to it. Remember that storms are coming in our life in different ways. Be prepared, stand firm, and face it. Remember that not all storms are worth escaping. Be courageous and be a conqueror. Once again, I'm Sheila Jane Tesorero, your Science 6 FB Live teacher, always reminding you to stay safe, stay healthy, and stay indoors. See you again next week in another Science Terrific episode here in Valenzuela FB Live. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for listening.